We're here in the M&M studio at the Capella Hotel in Singapore. I've just taken our headline speaker to end the festival, Brian Wong, founder of Kiip, and I've brought him into here to give him a quick interview, maybe a hair wash if he's lucky. Yes. So Brian, fantastic performance on stage, really interesting, really intriguing. You actually probably got the most questions that anyone had as well during the day. They're a bit reserved, the Asian audience, we've decided. But tell me a little bit more about Kiip. It was really interesting, the stuff that you're doing with brands and rewarding people for their happy moments.
Yeah, so essentially the insight that we had was in mobile activity, in apps and websites, there's always going to be this moment in time in which you're doing something that's where you're feeling and you actually have done something significant. And so that combination means that you're hyper engaged and it's a great opportunity for a brand to potentially be there. Now, we kind of realized that just putting an ad there wasn't going to be sufficient. And so when you feel like you've done something, the best thing to do is acknowledge it. And so that's how we ended up coming up with the idea of putting a reward in that moment. So that's kind of how the idea began, came with games, and then we realized that moments were practically in every app that we used. And so it began to expand and then become a part of people's daily lives.
That's fantastic. I mean, you often sit back and you think, well, I just wonder how they came up with such a concept, and it's obviously become such a success. I suppose in our industry, there's one of the things that really frustrates you is you've got all this potential for mobile. We saw it in Indonesia. They've got 125 million people under the age of 30.
Yeah.
And yet it must be so frustrating when you see brands who are still doing traditional print ads and effectively, probably for what, a third, half the price, they could be doing something that reaches far more people.
Yeah, I think what happens, though, is this linear evolution of ad formats that almost contributes to them having this allergic reaction to using mobile ads. So I don't blame them, right? So when you think about it, you know, there's the universal truism is that no normal human being has ever intentionally tapped on a banner ad on their phone, right?
Yeah.
It's like, if that's the case, so you shouldn't expect with the current state of affairs a brand to overinvest in that category. And so, our intention was, how do we change this? How do we create formats that actually do contribute to someone having a better experience? And I think that was what great content was always intended to be when you look at how great ads and funny ads and how brands were supposed to be a part of people's lives in traditional media. But then what happened is when everything became digital, it kind of became this very impersonal sort of frequency game. And the game is what made it, the technology aspect almost sucked the emotion out of it. So we almost wanted to bring the emotion back. And the phone was actually the best way to do that because it's one of the most intimate devices we've ever owned and actually shows the most emotional triggers from things like these moments that we dubbed.
Yeah. And who are the most kind of open brands to this kind of new technology and new ideas of ads? Who would you say, is there any particular sector that's really kind of leading the way?
So funnily enough, the more traditional, the more they realize they need to do things to differentiate, right? So think about the FMCG brands, the beverages, the retailers, even the QSRs, they all realize that their products have become so commoditized, they have to figure out ways to get to you and build that connection with you that doesn't come from now commanding your attention sitting in front of a television set for a few hours on end in the evening, because that just isn't happening anymore, right? And so they look at that and they're the most creative. So for example, the idea of us expanding beyond games was not ours. In fact, it came from a client. It came from Pepsi. Right. So they first worked with us on Mountain Dew and Diet Pepsi for gaming. And then one of their guys came to us and went, hey, you know what? Like, these moments, can't they even happen in fitness apps, for example? We have Gatorade. We have other products that might be relevant in those moments, too. And we're like, oh, that's really cool. And so we expanded there.
Well, interesting. Well, one of the things you've done recently is the partnership with MasterCard, which is quite interesting. I know you're going to join us in Rome as well, which will be quite exciting. We were thinking of maybe getting Raja to come and do a piece with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And how does the partnership work?
Yeah, so the details of it are most of it's going to come out on the 6th. But essentially what it is MasterCard has always been a priceless, right? And they kind of launched this new iteration of priceless called Priceless Surprises about a year ago. And they had an ad where, Justin Timberlake would show up at someone's house and start singing if she was. The whole point is that if you're a MasterCard card holder, these amazing things could happen. But we kind of looked at that. That's not really that scalable, right? Like you can't have JT showing up at everyone's house, right? So we said, how do we come up with a more scalable version of Priceless Surprises and actually use that as a way for MasterCard to become connected directly with the consumer? Because in many ways, they don't actually hold the relationship with you. If you think about it, it's a bank that does because they operate through an issuer model. Yes. The bank is what gives you the card, not them. So we kind of use the Priceless Surprises moniker as a way to do that. And so they kind of went, well, what mobile tech could we partner with to power surprise and delight rewards on a mobile interface. And obviously that's what we do. So it became very natural. So the first iteration of this is going to be the Priceless Surprises mobile app. And so that's coming out April 6th.
Wow.
And that's going to be an app where you can connect a lot of things to it. Some of it's going to be purchases, some of it's going to be social media. And based on that, you could potentially be surprised and delighted by MasterCard and some of its partners.
Okay. And with gigs or with, or you're not allowed to reveal what
I can't
the
reveal
surprises
exactly
could
what the
be?
rewards or the
Okay.
surprises are going to be, but it's going to be a whole host of things that span entertainment, sports, all the different
wow.
verticals that they care about.
Wow, fantastic, fantastic. And is this the furthest you've come to do a gig so far?
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
Well, we're very proud to have you, and thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank
We're
you.
looking forward to hanging out with you this evening.
Absolutely.